dancing twice a week, handicrafts and embroidery classes, whist and dominoes. 400 people use this centre, and there's a waiting list. They're all pensioners and still getting a lot out of life. Some old people can't get out and about. Some don't want to. But many have a strong spirit of independence.
84 in March.
90. I'm 91 on the 3rd of February next.
76, 77 in March.
How long is it since your wife died?
16 years.
How long were you married?
48 and a half years.
Are you a widow?
Yes.
How long's your husband been dead?
17 years.
And what about children and grandchildren?
So I've got 2 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild, 1 son.
I have son and daughter living. One died when he was 51, 10 years ago. Fully 10. And I have 3 grandsons, the youngest 18. One has done very well. He's out of university. The other one passed for a Bachelor of Science, but he's not done anything with it. And this one has just gone away to study for a doctor.
Have you ever been married, Miss Hampson?
No. I had a young man in during the war and he died. And
At the First World War?
yes.
1418?
Yes. So I still love him, so it's no use of bothering, is it?
41 years of happy married life. Poor, not knowing where the next meal'd been coming from, but happy, yes.
How did you describe yourself the other day?
An unclaimed treasure.
My boss there said to me he wished me to stay on after 65.
Mr. Roberts, now working part-time as a messenger, didn't want to retire at 65.
Was going by orders from Whitehall that 65 was the limit, and out you go. So of course, out I went. After a month or 2, I began to get a feeling inside that I was a bit like the rubbish dump in the garden. I'd been thrown out, and I wasn't contributing anything. And I didn't like it one bit. It's tough going if you've no pension other than your old age pension and the bob or 2 from the union. So, and that is how I finally finished up here. The work I'm doing here now at present, I find quite enjoyable in the sense that I like to meet the different people in the various offices, which I have to do as I go round with the mail. I take the outside mail and it is then pigeonholed to the various departments. Sometimes as you go around in the various offices, departments, they want some photostating doing and you run off whatever they want, you see. Sometimes you can't always cope with it because of the mail, but you do little bits of things. I mean, people ask you to do this or do that, and I'm quite happy to do it. I don't look down my nose and think, well, that's a kid's job or anything like that.
At the day centre, local school children serve a midday meal to the 200 people who eat here every weekday. These teenagers come from a nearby secondary modern school, and other schools also help. The centre also sends out meals, and all local authorities provide a Meals on Wheels service for elderly people who can't get out or cook for themselves. This service is very considerably helped by the Women's Royal Voluntary Service and other voluntary organisations who take round the hot meals. Information about the various welfare services provided for old people can be obtained from the Social Services Department of town halls. Another Salford girls' school has a society which helps old people in all sorts of ways. Georgina and Gillian are helping Miss Chadwick to do her shopping. She's arthritic and lives alone, so if she can't get out, the girls shop for her.
Like some place, please. Place, yes. Yes, please. That's 26 pence. Is it too large? I've got a smaller one. Have you? That's slightly less, 23. Yes, no, that's all. And you'd like it delicate? Yes, please. Do you want it delicate into 4 pieces?
There are many ways in which young people can help the elderly. Writing letters for those who can't see, changing library books for those who can, decorating, gardening, window washing are among the jobs that the young can do to help the old. For instance, Kathleen's interested in social work as a career and visits Mrs. Martin at least once a week.
Well, mostly we try to get, as near the school as possible,
Yes,
so
yes.
the girls don't have very far to go.
Yes,
And they
yes.
go after school from about 4 o'clock.
Yeah, yes.
Go to visit them.
And, I mean, apart from shopping and things, what about just sitting down and talking to people?
Yes, well that's
Yeah.
the main thing, and it's very interesting to listen to them about when they were young,
Yes. How do you manage for money?
Well, you get your pension and so much security, you see. Get it made up. But you just have to manage with it and be very careful. If I go on a holiday, I start saving up, save as I've come back now, I start saving up for the full 12 months. That's how I go.
And what about clothes and things like
Oh, I
that?
haven't to think about clothes. I haven't had clothes for years. My daughter-in-law gives me all my coats. They're beautiful. Yeah, she gives me all my coats. But as regards clothes, when I did knit, I knitted tidy and they've kept me going, you see. I do all my own knitting. But you don't think about buying a lot of clothes,
No, but you can manage for food.
Well, I've managed so far, I mean, you have to just go sparingly,
I don't spend more than I have to. And I get roughly I get social security. And above that, I get approximately £1 a week.
Now, I'm being candid, there's a lot, they grumble. But let me say, there's lots of things you'd like we can't have. And if you have a method in your money, you can manage, there's lots of things you'd like, but you have to put them alongside as long as you've got a home, light, and a bit of something to eat. That's my view. I mean, so I don't know what other things. Of course, I couldn't go to bingo or anything like that. The most money we spend is across there, and that's not much.
Mrs. Green and Mrs. Bradley of the National Federation of Old Age Pensions Associations are very concerned about the amount of the state pension. Is lack of money the most difficult thing for the old? Mrs. Green.
I believe that the lack of money is a very, very important issue for the pensioner. When a person is working, they are earning a decent wage, and when they come on to retire, they suddenly are cut down and they have to manage on a pittance as against their wage. They may have prepared for retirement, but things want replacing, and it is not long before they find that perhaps any savings are completely eaten up with renewing things, shoes, anything like that. And the lack of money is a very, very vital issue.
Well, the only people that can give more money to pensioners are the government in power. And the only way that we can persuade the government in power to give them more money is by backing up the organisations which work to put this pressure on the government. All young people now have a vote at 18, so they have an influence they can bring to bear. They will start working and they will become trades unionists. And the trades unions have now allied themselves with the pensioners' organisation, working to impress upon the government the need for a better basic pension. And it's this pressure by all sections of the community, not just the pensioners, but everybody working and not working, that will eventually make the government realise that they must do something about it. Many old people look on social security, the supplementary pension, as charity, but they're very foolish to do this, because it isn't charity at all. It is theirs of right. All their working life they were compelled to pay the contributions that they had to do by law. They've pulled their weight in keeping the country going, and when they're old, the country has made provision to give them enough money on which to live. And that's what a supplementary pension is. It isn't charity, it's a right.
Mrs. Green, do you think that people can prepare for old age and retirement?
People can prepare for retirement by keeping an interest, seeing that they keep into society. I think what they've got to remember is when they retire, they lose the companionship of fellow workers, and they can find companionship in clubs. They must keep in line with society and not cut themselves off. This is very, very essential. And there are things, hobbies, there are classes that people can go to. Every old age pensioner doesn't like going to a class, but the thing is, keep a personal contact.
Now, what about loneliness in old age, Mrs. Bradley?
Oh, loneliness is a dreadful thing in old age. The lack of money from the pension is a big contributory factor in bringing about loneliness, because they cannot keep in the swim of things. They find that they may have been moved to a one-person's flatlet on the outskirts of town, and they can't get in to keep their contacts going. They suddenly miss 1 week, and then they don't go again. And they're cut off, and they may be living in a luxurious little flatlet, but it's like a prison to them. And this is where the community at large can help. It's this caring community which we must bring about. We must get them a better pension, and we must make the community really care for the old people in their midst.
Well, I think you could do it a bit more company. There's no one to talk to. You see? Kathleen comes, she's been very good. She's been coming twice. She come twice last week.
Some of the neighbours come in and see me, and I'm all right. I'm not lonely at all. My home help comes on Tuesday, officially, and she brings me anything I want in if she's going by. Thursday, and she always comes on Sunday. I ask her to come on Sunday, have a meal with me. That breaks the day of it, and it makes no difference to the cost. And she's a very great help, great person.
Well, I must say, it's this way. It just comes on you now and again, you see. Well, that's the time you have to put your ideas on and think, well, you're not lonely, there's others beside you, you see.
If you feel depressed, it sort of takes you out of yourself. And you feel much better when you've spoken to somebody, you see, because you sit here for hours and hours, days on end, and don't see a soul.
Old age is very difficult to define. Some people are old at 50, and some still feel young at 90. What then medically is old age? A doctor who specialises in the care of the elderly explains.
It's very difficult to define. One can never decide at any one stage in your life when old age sets in. In fact, one can say you're aging from the time you're born, or certainly from the time when you've reached your peak of physical development, which is probably between the ages of 18 to 21. People, I'm sure, realise people can age at different rates. Some people age quite quickly. Other people will be going strong at 80 and 90 and showing no signs of ages. And the other interesting thing is that different parts of the different individual can age at different rates too. So that one part of one's body can show more signs of aging than other parts. One feels that eyesight isn't quite so good as people get older. This is due to some of the changes which are occurring generally in the body. People's sense of smell tends to deteriorate a little bit as they get older, and this leads to hazards with gas and such like. Hearing too can be affected as people grow older. The activity, of course, depends on their attitude to life, I find quite a lot too. The people who've kept themselves active mentally tend to go on that way in old age, and we feel that people should develop all their powers before pre-retirement age, so that when they come to retirement they have this activity of mind and interest outside, so that they go on being an active part of the community. Physically, one has to be aware that illness can come with old age, but we shouldn't put everything down that happens to an old person as just being due to aging. They may well have developed an illness which is treatable in the same way as if you or I had a similar illness.
Now, are there any contrasts or are there similarities perhaps between young people and older people?
Well, there are problems and illnesses perhaps that arise at all stages. One can compare adolescence with senescence quite conveniently.
Senescence means old age?
Old age, yes. Again, it just means aging. If we think of the group over 65 and compare it, say, with the adolescents, one thinks of all the emotional storms and frustrations that we go through in adolescence, which can affect our outlook. Well, old people go through the same problems, particularly if you think of an active 65-year-old man who quite suddenly is retired from work. Very similar to an adolescent who leaves the security of a school and an ordered community and then goes to work. They have difficulties to face at this stage. And it can, as I say, affect their outlook. It can lead to illness in both classes, but on the whole, it's usually just a temporary upset, possibly a depression, which can be overcome as they get used to this state.
I firmly believe I'll see him again. Yes, and I firmly believe that he guides me. I do. Because when you spent all that life together, you feel as though I can talk to him just the same. I don't believe in spiritualism, but I firmly believe you see one another. Because when you pray to God. You don't see him, but you know he's there, don't you? You do. And no one can live without God. I don't care who he is. Can't. You must have God in your life. You must hang on to something, you see, to keep you going.
If I was going to die, I'd like to be conscious and thank people for being so good to me. It wouldn't frighten me a bit. Oh, I'm not frightened to death.
Not frightened. Not a bit. Because it comes to everybody. When he puts his finger there, you've had it, haven't you? No, not a bit.